In this video we will start a new series about infinite series in heuristic. I know this is not math, but I will talk like it's math. Actually, it's not math. And for example, the equal sign is not unequal. It's not the mathematics equal, but I will use it anyways because it's more clear to read instead of using the arrow every time. And I started this research about this topic a few years ago. I actually already wrote a book, two books, one in Italian language, the other in English language. In this channel, YouTube channel, I showed my book. I showed my book in a previous video a few months ago, and I already made a series about this topic, but I now remake it in English, so it can be seen from international language, international public. Let's start with the first lesson. We will cover the series 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1, which gives, quote, 1 over 2, 0.5, a half. Okay, here we are, and we're gonna talk about 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1, and so on. What gives? We are in heuristics math. Heuristic mathematics. So this is not actually mathematics. Let's start putting this x. I will not use very technical terms because my native language is Italian. I know the terms in Italian, but I don't know many of them in English, and so I will use many words to say just one term if I don't know. So let's put it x, and we can rewrite this in this new form. Like, for example, I don't know how to, this term is to describe this thing. I gathered like the minus from all these terms and set here the parentheses, and we notice this is exactly x. This is not maths, this is heuristic maths, so I voluntarily do not respect some of the maths rules. So we have 1 minus x equals x. 1 equals to x. X 1 over 2. Okay, so 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 plus equals 1 over 2, a half. We can also make a graph, a line graph. So we start at 0 because the first before the first term is added, there is 0. The partial sum is 0. So let's make this S0 is 0. S1 is 1. S2 is 1 minus 1, which is equal to 0. S3 is 1 minus 1 plus 1, which is 1, and so on. The partial sums are 0 or 1. So we have 0. The first is 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, and so on. If we draw an average line, we notice that is at 1 over 2, a half. If we zoom out from this graph, we can notice 1 over 2, a half. It's like a condensation of this series will give a half. We can also make a step, a histogram, like this. The first partial sum is 0, the null partial sum is 0, the first is 1, the second is 0, and so on, and the same thing. But we will later in the next series choose which one is the better graph, because we will notice some properties. One of these two graphs is not very good, but we will talk about this in the next videos. Thus, 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 is connected to 0.5, 1 over 2, and I will use equal because I'm talking about heuristic math. The equal sign in these videos must not be intended as an equal in math. We can have also another method to extract this value. 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 plus a. Then we put the same series below, but we have a 0 here. I will now put an asterisk because there is a question. We will later talk about this. Sum vertically, 1, this is 0, 0, 0, equals 2a. The same thing, a, 1 over 2. The equal is a question. One can say, but how do we know that if we put a 0 here, a is always here? This is a good question, but and I noticed this thing when a few years ago I studied this topic. But if we go on with all the studies, we will then approach new methods and new properties, which will tell us that this is possible. It's like a physics model. We will use a model to describe this series. Until it's good, we will use it. So this can be done because now I will say this thing, but I know that it's not well explained, but we will later analyze it. This series, 1 minus 1, is stable. One moment, this method I call it sliding sum. Sliding sum because we have the same series but with a slided place. This series one is stable and also this, so can be slided. In particular, this is using the one sliding sum because just one place. But we can use also the two sliding sum, and we can now see this 1 minus 1 and so on equals a 0 0 1 minus 1 equals a 1 minus 1 0, and 2 minus, my mistake, 2 minus 2 plus 2 minus 2, and so on, equals 2a. This is 0. This is 2 times 1 minus 1 plus 1, and so on, 2a. We are in the same place of this, so it's like useless. Sometimes happens that we can find some methods which will bring us back to the start. As a matter of fact, I previously said that my approach is like a physical model. I use a model to extract this value, then we will use this model until it's good, while it's good. I studied a lot of this series, and I also wrote a book in Italian and a book in English. I have now here only the Italian version. In Serie Infinite in Heuristica, solidità, coerenza ed eleganza di Serie Infinite in Heuristica matematica. In English is called Infinite Series in Heuristics, solidity, coherence and elegance of the infinite series in heuristic mathematics. And now there are some mistakes in this book. A new version should be done, but right now I don't have time. Maybe in the future. Sorry for my bad English, but I'm now remaking this series in English language. I previously, a few years ago, made this series about this topics series in Italian. It was with very little views. I remake it for an international public. And let's start making a list, which is already here. Now I will find a list. Well, I will use this. A list of all important heuristic series. We have today analyzed this. 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 equals, quote, a half. I actually don't know, 1 over 2, a half. Are there other methods to describe 1 over 2? I don't know. This is, and next, see you soon to the next lesson.